Welcome back to Real Country Jukebox Podcast with Raymond and James. We got a pretty interesting topic for y'all today. This one's kind of broad, but it really lets you know a whole lot about us and what we really like in music. No, we're not talking about male vocalists specifically, or groups specifically, or female specifically. This is just very broad. My favorite 10 and his favorite 10 artists, period, of all time. We're going to count them down from 10 to 1. So this is going to be a fun topic. How's it going, Raymond?
Man, it's going great. I've really been looking forward to this one because I think this right here is it's so broad that you can really figure out who people are by their top 10 artists of all time. I mean, in the country music genre.
Right, yeah.
So, one of the guys on my list, I ain't gonna say where he's coming in at, but I had a chance to meet him over the weekend.
Uh-oh.
So,
I haven't even heard this story, so this is exciting.
Well, I figured it might be a good one to open up the story with. So, we went to the concert Friday night. As I said on the last podcast, we were gonna go see Cody Jinks. Well, we went to the concert. It was a good time. We met Erin Vinecourt. She was his opener. She's awesome. Her music's great. Her and Cody wrote a song together, and she performed it there. And she's the first artist on his new record label.
Awesome.
And it's warranted. Which, of course, if Cody Jinks is gonna have someone on, they're gonna be good.
It's gonna be legit.
So anyway, I make long story short. The concert was over. Loud and Heavy is what he was finishing with, and
So you met him after the concert?
we met him after.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. So I didn't even get to that part. Yeah. I'll just start the story at the end of the concert.
Okay.
So the people beside me had already looked up the set list, and they're from just on the South Carolina line, but they know a lot about Charlotte. They said that Loud and Heavy was going to be the finisher. And right when that song started, they headed out. And on their way out, we were like, hey, we didn't eat any supper before we came. We had some nachos early. Is there a good place around here that we could like walk to, get a burger, and something like that, and hang out for a little while? And she was like, yeah, there's a sports bar right at the end of you leave the concert venue, it's right on the right. I can't remember what it's called right off the top of my head, but she said if it's not too packed in there from their normal crowd or the concert crowd, maybe you can get a seat. They got good food.
Okay.
So we're like, cool. So we got in there. There was only 4 seats left. And I'm telling this story kind of like specific because you can see all the things that if it had changed in 5-minute intervals, we would have never
Wouldn't have been
known.
the same situation.
Yep. So, I mean, it could have been so many things. Anyway, there was 4 seats. We sat down 2 of them, got our food and drinks. Then another couple of our age sits down there, and they're pumped up about the concert. We're talking to them. They're really cool people, so it was nice talking to them. And we weren't tired. We weren't in a hurry to get home. Well, we had been there about 40 minutes, and I was enjoying the conversation, but I was about ready to head out.
You about spent?
Yeah, so I told Stacy, I was like, look, I ain't in no hurry, but whenever you're ready to get out of here, let's go.
Okay.
And she was like, well, let's give it 15, 20 minutes, something like that, and we'll get out of here. So we talked to them a little bit longer, and I don't want to get too long-winded and make this story boring, but I'm telling these specifics for a reason. I done tried to get out of there once. So now, finally, 20 minutes later, we're like, all right, y'all, it's nice to meet you, we're heading out. So we walked out of the sports bar, and 100 yards, there's buses in a gated fence. There's about 20, and this is I'm going to say going on 2 hours after the show.
Yeah.
These people have been waiting out there by the gate since we came out. I mean, because we saw them waiting there.
Yeah.
And we just had a feeling after the show weren't nobody going to meet them. So...
And if they had, this is 2 hours later, they would have already met him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went ahead and booked the Uber, and of course it's down, Charlotte on a Friday night, midnight. So the Uber's like, well, it might be 30 minutes. We're like, cool. So we're just hanging out there talking just to each other. And after about not 5 minutes after that, the bus opens up, and Aaron, a couple band members, and Cody walk out.
Wow.
And everyone like that had been standing out there the whole time was like hollering for Cody. Well, they had been standing out there the whole time, and we had done talked to Aaron, and we wanted to talk to her again. She came over there, and we talked to her for a little while, and we had a feeling that Cody wouldn't just leave us out there hanging.
Yeah.
You know, that he'd come over and
Right.
talk. So we talked to her for a little while, but the whole time, now that we know he's accessible, and we knew she was accessible, we had done talked to her before the show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I told you that or not.
You did.
But the whole time, we know we're going to get a chance to meet him, the Uber driver minutes are counting down.
Right.
So
you're on a time clock.
Yeah. So when it said you got like 7 minutes, Uber driver's up the road, Stacy goes over there to like the crowd, and when I say a crowd, I'm talking about 20 people.
Yeah.
On the other side of the fence, and Cody's over there taking pictures, signing autographs, all this. Well, when it got down to about 4 minutes, I go ahead and head over there and say I'm gonna try to get a picture with Cody before we head out. Well, we're still kind of back in the line, and Stacy was trying to holler at him. She couldn't even get it out. She was so starstruck because she loves more than I do.
Yeah.
And I said, look, if we don't get a chance to meet him, it's okay.
Yeah.
And she's like, Cody, and he turns around, and she's like,
oh, perfect.
She's like, our Uber driver is literally 3 minutes down the road. Is there any way we could get a picture or meet you before we head out? I'm not lying to you. He was like,
so you got to jump the line because of that.
Man, I never want to be like the entitled type, but he's the kind of guy, this is no lie. He's like, yeah, he said, he told us security to bring us around the fence, and then he kind of like gave a notion to everyone waiting in line, like, hey, I'm gonna get to everyone. Their Uber drivers right down the road.
Yep.
I'm gonna hang out with them a couple minutes, and then I'll make sure we all, like,
man, that is cool.
And then we didn't feel as entitled, and nobody was upset about it that they'd been waiting all night and we hadn't. It was
and
cool.
What a cool thing on his part to let everybody know, look, they're not jumping you. We're gonna get to everybody, but they got to go. Let's prioritize that.
Yeah, and then it's funny because about the time we talked to him for a couple minutes, and then about the time the guy got ready to take the picture, he's like, hey, y'all's Uber drivers here, and then he's pulling up right behind us, like in the picture. You can see the car behind us with the flashers on. Like,
man.
It could have been like a couple minutes through the whole thing off.
Yeah.
So,
timing is everything.
I know. So, basically, though, the guy was like, all right, we're going to go. I don't want him to leave y'all. I was like, look, man, it's like $16 to $20. He can have that money. We're getting a chance to meet Cody Jinks.
I'm about to say, I was thinking that too. If I had to cancel the Uber and pay that charge, even double the price, it'd be well worth it to meet somebody that you like a lot.
Exactly. And Cody and Stacy's like, yeah, this is Cody Jinks. He can wait, And so anyway, we met him and talked to him, and I would have had, if I had more time, and needless to say, the Uber driver, when we got in the car and told him the story, he was like, I'd have waited all night. Y'all are good. But if I had more, now that I told that story, I ain't gonna tie it too much more of the time. That's how we went about meeting him. But if I had, all I talked to him about was how good the show was, how we appreciate him like moving us along and making sure it happened. But if I had a chance to have some more time, then I would have asked him a little bit more in-depth questions about music and different things. And I can get to that when I mention them later on in the podcast. But that's
he made it personal for y'all. Yeah, that's awesome. Man.
Yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed our story. And I can't emphasize this enough either about how cool Erin was. Like, she's gonna fit in great with that. Just the whole thing, because it's like I said, she's a star too. She's got things to do, and while everyone else is waiting for him, she talked to us like me and you are talking right now.
Yeah, like she known your whole life.
The whole time, yeah.
That's a great story, man. I'm happy for y'all. I know how much y'all love them.
I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And by the way, I actually just got an email that I won some tickets to go see them this weekend in Florida. I don't know if I'll do that or
Country
not.
music lottery
but that's
over
awesome.
here.
Yeah, I hope that I get to do that. But
you're on a roll, man. Keep going.
Yeah. You want me to start off with number 10?
Yeah, go ahead. Here comes the top 10, everybody. What a great story, though. Great story.
My number 10, Sarah Evans. Sarah Evans came along at a time when the genre was changing. I think she was like around, I think she had one song in 98, but the early 2000s was her main prime.
That was her, meat and potatoes.
Yeah. So, and her music to me was as country as anything anyone was putting out at that time.
Yeah.
And we we've seen her in concert. She had a great live performance. You know, she's beautiful, got a good voice. She's the whole 9 yards in my opinion, and that's why I put her in at number 10.
She deserves that spot, and she's so hard to look at. No, but yeah, and her Go Tell It on the Mountain, when it comes Christmas time, her Go Tell It on the Mountain is absolutely amazing. But I like Sarah Evans a lot too. My number 10 is, and this one's a little more personal. My number 10 is Craig Campbell. I think Craig Campbell is absolutely one of the best pure singers in Nashville and in the country music genre. I don't think he gets the respect he deserves. But I've been fortunate enough to get to know him pretty good, and I go down for his cornhole tournament every year in the summer, which you guys are going to this year. That's awesome. And we're going to try to do a podcast while we're down there too, in Nashville. But yeah, Craig Campbell, he's just been a friend of me and my friends and my brother, and his first 2 albums I would lay down against anything in the last 10, 15 years. Just real good vocalist, real good guy, great musician. Used to play keys for Tracy Byrd and Luke Bryan and stuff before he became an artist in his own right. But Craig Campbell comes in at number 10 for me.
Yeah, and I don't know Craig's music like you do, but what I do know is if you look at when he came out, his music was as country as anything that came out.
It definitely was.
I'm going to say 2011. Am I close?
That's close. 11, 12, somewhere in there, maybe even 10. Somewhere in there, yeah.
I know the first song I ever heard by him was like Family Man and Fish, and I just remember it being about the time me and Stacey got married, and it was some of the country sound songs I heard at that time.
I agree.
My number 9 is Dolly Parton. And I can't say enough about Dolly. I mean, you know, not only is she great vocally and beautiful and a good writer and all this stuff, but I'd rather get away from the music for a second and just emphasize just how good of an individual she is, period. You know, we done so many podcasts before. I know I brought her up before, but in case I haven't mentioned this, you know, like when she's very generous with her wealth, and she never asks no questions. You know, like when she's got a book club for kids up to 5 years old, and our hospital where we work at is actually affiliated with her program, and they actually have someone that works there that like their job is to come through before the mom goes home with the baby and offer you to get signed up, and it's a book a month until they're 5.
That's amazing, man, to reach that many people.
Yeah, and you know, when you're filling out the paper, they're asking for your name and address. They're not asking for you know, what's your income or what, you know, what race are you, all this stuff. You know, she don't care. She's just to help out. You know, you might be a millionaire. She'll send you a book.
That's right.
All you need is address. So
not a respecter of persons, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I definitely just like last podcast, the Mother's Day, when we brought up Code Many Colors, I mean, what she came from to what she is now, and I really believe if she walked up here right now, she'd act like she was one of us.
I believe that.
So Dolly Parton comes in number 9 for me.
That's a good choice. Number 9 for me is Steve Wariner. I think Steve Wariner is as underrated as anybody in country music. His heyday was really more like throughout the 80s. He had some really big hits throughout the 80s. And then he kind of trickled into the early 90s a little bit and had a few big hits. And then he kind of trickled off, and he just, you know, he's a genius on guitar. He's a great singer. He's kind of along the style of Vince Gill if you don't listen to him a whole lot. But and I didn't really listen to him that hard in the 80s and understand everything. Maybe I was too young, I don't know. But even after his last big spell in the 90s, it was just later on, probably the last 10 or 12 years, I really kind of discovered his music and started listening to it and understanding it. And now that's why he easily made the top 10. It's just, I think he's flown so under the radar, but he's amazing.
Yeah, he is. My number 7 is Patty Loveless.
Yeah.
You know, just, man, that whole time from, you know, the early to late 90s, she just, everything she done was just great, man. And she sounded so, I don't know if it's because they were out about the same time or whatever, but to me, she's almost like, kind of like a female, like Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, just keeping it very country when some of it wasn't.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, and Patty Loveless is just great like that.
Yeah. Number 8 for me is, and this kind of goes along with Patty Loveless, is Vince Gill. Vince Gill kind of owned the 90s in his own right, in his own style. And I think Vince Gill is just one of country music's best friends. I mean, you'll find, like you talked about earlier, Sarah Evans. You'll find Sarah Evans. You'll find Roseanne Cash music. You'll find even as new as somebody like Charlie Worsham, Patty Loveless, obviously. You'll find so many people who have Vince Gill singing vocals or backing tracks or something on their album. He's just real big on that. He's an incredible writer, an incredible musician, killer on the mandolin, killer on the guitar. And I mean, just one of these, I remember some award show years back where he got some kind of achievement award, and he was talking about how he didn't mind all these artists calling him and asking him to do things for him and sing with him and do these things for him. He made the statement, he said, if you call, I will answer. And he's just been such a great ambassador for country music. And just like when Reva's band, her entire band died in that plane crash years and years ago, first person to call her, Vince Gill, I'll come play guitar for you. It's just things like that, man, that make him not only an amazing singer, but just, I mean, how can you not love When I Call Your Name and Pocket Full of Gold and just all these big hits he's had. But beyond that, he's a good person and a good friend to people in country music. So, I mean, I got Vince Gill at number 8.
You know, it's funny you say that. What Vince Gill is known for, you know, everything you just said, and his vocals are so good, yet my 2 favorite songs are still What the Cowgirls Do and One More Last Chance.
Yep, the upbeat stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll say one other thing before I leave the Vince Gill topic. If you're ever in Nashville, Tennessee, and you don't have anything to do on a Monday night, on Monday nights he goes and plays with a bunch of guys at a place called 3rd and Lindsley. Go there, enjoy the show, and if you hang around long enough after the show, he's just like us. He'll just, except he's talented. He's just like us. He'll hang around. What I'm saying is he's a really good person. He'll hang out. He'll talk to you, take a picture. He's easily accessible for such a huge name in country music.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. My number 7 is someone that, and I'll explain this. He's the first male I've mentioned on this podcast is Garth Brooks. And Garth comes in at number 7. He had, you know, the 90s were his heyday, and he was putting out several songs a day, it seemed like. But just like Sarah Evans coming in at number 10 and Garth being like the last male on my list coming in at number 7, there's some artists that are out right now making music right now that if they continue, they could very easily slip into some of those spots, and like Sarah Evans could fall off. And because I'd love to mention, like, one of my favorite albums ever, and I mean this, ever, even though she's brand new, is Hayley Wilder's Raised.
Amen.
And I can't put her in my top 10 because, I mean, Black Sheep was a good album, and the one before, the one right after that was good, but Raised is so good that she has a couple like that, she's going on the top 10.
Yeah. She doesn't have enough yet, but
Yep.
if she keeps doing stuff like that, she will. Yeah.
And a lot of his stuff sounds a lot alike, but I talk about Riley Green all the time. If Riley Green was to continue for 10 years making music like he's making right now, there's a good chance he's going to slide in Garth's spot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that I'm listening to right now more than Garth, and I would love to put them up here, but they just don't have enough material for me yet to do that, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So right now I got Garth coming in at that position.
Gotcha. What a monster in country music.
Yeah.
Number 7 for me is Daryl Worley. Daryl Worley, probably like the early 2000s, when he first come out and just started putting out music. He's very, I'm not going to say he sounds like him, but his style of country music is very Alan Jackson-ish. A lot of steel, a lot of fiddle, a lot of just standard traditional country music. And he's still doing it. He's just kind of below the radar. But not enough I can really say about him, but I love his patriotic stuff. I love his songs about life, love songs. Everything he does is just, I don't understand why he's not bigger, but I do love Daryl Worley.
Have you ever heard of Hard Rain Don't Last?
It was ruminating, but I wasn't going to bring it up. But yeah.
No, bring it up.
Hard Rain Don't Last. Aside from, I can't remember if we've done the albums thing on here or not, but if we have or haven't, doesn't matter. Hard Rain Don't Last, that whole If You're Stranded on a Desert Island thing. I mean, obviously, Alan Jackson, Who I Am, would be my first album I'd ever have. But Hard Rain Don't Last would probably be the second album, my second favorite album of all time. The Hard Rain Don't Last album is just amazing. But I bring that up to him probably, it seems like on a daily basis, so he had to make the joke back at me, and it is just a great album.
Well, he went for a while, even before the podcast started, was like, hey, have you heard Harder Ain't Not Last, and I was like, I've heard the radio singles off of that album, you know. And after a while, I was like, let me just play this daggone thing, and it was good. It was good. So yeah, I give props for that, but I like to pick
Thanks,
on him
man.
about it. Yeah. My number 6 is Eric Church,
Chief.
and yeah, you know, there's I could go on and on. I could have 3 1-hour podcasts just on Eric Church. He kind of, there was a time though, I gotta say this, that he had definitely been at the 4 spot, and that's been recent. But I loved, to be honest with you, the first 2 albums he had were very country, and they started to change after that, and I loved the change. I embraced it, and I actually liked them albums better.
Yeah.
But it got kind of out of hand, in my opinion. And Eric, if you're listening to this, I hope you contact me. Let me know how you feel. That way I get a chance to talk to you. But yeah, I think that the last, that Heart and Soul, and like my brother Cody, he messaged me the other day. He's like, man, he said, I've been listening to Heart and Soul, and I swear it gets better and better every time I listen to it. So maybe I need to revisit it.
I think it would for you. I think it would.
So yeah, I think I need to listen to it again. But yeah, Eric Church is still right there at number 6. He's got so much stuff. His live shows are so great, and he's the type that if his next album sounded like Metallica and the one right after that sounded like George Jones, it would not surprise me, and I'd buy both of them.
He's all over the place. I would too.
So,
I'm gonna buy everything he ever makes.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
So anyway, Eric Church, number 6.
North Carolina boy. Number 6 for me, I'm finally throwing a female in the mix. Leanne Womack. Leanne Womack is my favorite female artist in any genre of all time. What a smooth country voice. Songs like The Fool and You've Got to Talk to Me and Buckaroo, and especially all that early stuff. But to me, The Fool is as well written a female country song as you will ever hear. I mean, just everything about that song from start to finish, it hooks you. So I've got Leanne Womack there. And speaking of that, Little Past Little Rock the same way. I mean, those songs just do not get old to me. And there was another one I was trying to think. Now You See Me, Now You Don't is really good. I'll Think of a Reason Later. Just all that stuff, man. I wish she'd been bigger longer. I wish she did win one Female Vocalist of the Year, I think around 05 or something like that. But she didn't win enough awards and get enough to the forefront. She should be an Opry member. To me, she's like a female Alan Jackson, just very traditional, which is what I love. And I mean, there's just everything about Leanne Womack I love, good enough to put her at the number 6 spot.
Yeah, and even that I Hope You Dance, they considered it a crossover to pop. I mean, to me, I thought that was a good song too.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was good.
It weren't bad. That's what Stacey and her dad danced to at the wedding. I mean, it was a decent song. It weren't one of my favorites, but it was good.
That song does check a lot of boxes, yeah.
Yeah. My next one is Cody Jinks, and obviously I talked a lot about him when the podcast started, but coming in at number 5 is kind of a big deal because he's been out since about 2010, but he's put out several albums. I mean, there's probably, I don't want to call it exactly off the top of my head, but I'm going to say 7, 8 albums. And there's a couple things I want to mention to him that I didn't mention earlier. I really wanted to open up with that story, but Cody Jinks to me sounds very outlawish for this day and time. And he is very outlawish because all of his music, he writes exactly what he feels, just like Waylon and them did back in the day. And I probably catch some wrath from this from the older guys that love that outlaw
I see the similarities
sound,
already, but yeah.
But as much as I love Waylon and them, Cody's better. I'll just say it. The music's better, the songs are better, the lyrics, the vocals. He's just better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that
hey, this is your top 5.
Yeah,
you know?
and I think that if he was out in that day, they would all, be on the phone to collaborate with him.
They'd be buddies, and for sure.
And his live show was good, like I said. And then the last thing I'll say is, Cody back in the day, back in high school, college, his buddies wanted to be in a heavy metal band. They asked him would he be in it with them, and he was like, sure, I'll do that. Just as something to do. And his heart's in country music. But last year, he decided to put out a metal album, gave that band a different name, made that album, and it just kind of sounds like hard rock. I've listened to it. It's pretty good, but he completely separated it.
Mm-hmm.
He ain't like, I'm going to make country music and have it full of,
call it what it is.
So I appreciate that part of him. He kept the country music country. and separate it. So I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Number 5 for me is Eric Church. And I'm kind of like him. There's a time where I probably would have Eric in my top 3. My number 1's always going to be my number 1 when I get to that. But Eric could have been in my top 3 for a long time, probably from 2006 to about 2015. For a long time, he would have been. And it's not that I've lost respect for him or don't like him or anything like that anymore. Obviously, he still made the top 5. But I just loved him from the get-go, from How About You right out the gate. I love his energy. I love his live show. One of the best live performers you'll ever see, and he gives you everything he's got. Great songwriter. When he went on tour with George Strait, they worked well together. There's just so much. I could spend the next hour talking about Eric Church, but I'm not going to do that because we need to get to other stuff. But North Carolina boy, just everything about Eric Church I love, and he comes in at number 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm my number 4 is Whiskey Myers, and I really debated heavily whether to put them on this list. And when we first started this podcast, I actually said, I believe in episode 1, that I like to include them, but it was kind of hard for me too because their music's very rockish. But I decided to include them because there's some newer country stuff on the radio that would be okay if I included up here. That Whiskey Myers is 10 times country and they are. So, it's just instead of snap
It don't
track,
take much these days.
instead of snap tracks, it's heavy electric guitars. But still, what they say is country stuff. And it's just heavier. It's kind of like, Southern rock, more or less. But Whiskey Myers is in there because they write all their own music. They produce their last album themselves. They do all their, they do a lot of work themselves that other people, have managers and all that stuff to do. And Whiskey Myers, they were asked one time what genre did they consider themselves, rock, country, what are y'all? And they said, we just make music for the working man that gets up before the sun, puts on his boots, and goes the American way. And I don't know what's more country than that.
There's not. There's not.
Whiskey Myers and Cody Jinks go very hand in hand. They only live like 2 hours from each other. They play concerts together. Anyway, the reason why they're so similar to me, but the reason why that I would probably put Whiskey Myers there in front is just because I love they've got a great harmonica in there, and their music is just so, like, when you're at the concert, it's just like wide open the whole time. And I just love that. There ain't not one slow, there ain't not one dull moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but yeah, I consider them, right. If Cody Jinks joined their band, it would not change at all. It'd be the same way.
Yeah.
So I could kind of consider them together.
Number 4 for me is, I'm sure y'all have heard of him, George Strait. King George comes in at number 4. Everything about that guy, to me, I'll say it again, I mean, if we're talking, wouldn't even call it modern now. Back in the day, you had your trailblazers, George Jones, Merle Haggard, those guys, and then you had Alan Jackson, George Strait, and those type of guys, and now you've got what you got now. But to me, George Strait and Alan Jackson are pretty much the standard barriers for country music, in my opinion. That's what country music should sound like. But he didn't take a lot of avenues other than just standing up there and singing. But that's all we needed out of King George. That's why he's the king. All those number 1s. I can never get tired of Amarillo by Morning and Cowboy Rides Away and things like that, all the way up to I Got a Car. The guy's just fantastic. He's been consistent. If it wasn't for like the way they could change the sound of music and make it progress like it digitally and things like that, like when you buy music later on in life, Unwound, his very first song, would sound just like I Got a Car, just 25 years, 30 years later or whatever. He's been very consistent. Everything, he's been able to do the same act his whole career. Pure Country is an outstanding movie. I mean, just everything about George Strait. Matter of fact, out of all the great albums he's had, and they're all great, the Pure Country soundtrack is still my favorite to listen to from start to finish. But George Strait, can't say enough about him.
Yeah, same for me. My next 3, I'm pretty consistent on who my favorites are, but all 3 of these guys, you can kind of just draw a hat. But I think if I was to choose right now, this very second, number 3 would be Hank Williams Jr. I love Hank Jr. All of his songs from even when he was doing his dad's stuff, but once he changed and started going his own way, like I don't never hit skip. I love them all. I told a story before about, when I was in high school, every time I get paid, I buy a couple different $7 at the Washington Walmart. They're $7 a piece. I buy $20 worth of them.
Heck yeah.
Even like his B-side stuff is just phenomenal. Of the outlaw guys from that era, he is the best one. And sometimes, I've seen interviews of him saying that he does his best writing like around his little lake at the house or on a creek bank or something. I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him last year live. It was awesome. It was the first time I'd ever seen him. My wife got me that as a graduation gift, and
I remember that.
I'm really glad she did because he's getting up there in age. I'm glad I saw him when he was still
And he can still go.
Yeah, and he went. So that's my number 3, 100%. And really, another thing too, I'll say this: of everyone on my list, including my number 2 and number 1, if I could meet any of them one time, it'd be him.
I understand. My number 3 is Alabama. Alabama, to me, is the greatest band in country music history, the artists of the decades and just everything about them. And matter of fact, as far back as I can remember when I first understood music, knew what country music was, my earliest memories, I think the first country music act I ever loved was Alabama. Went and bought the Roll On album for $7 at Rose's here in town. And I've been hooked ever since. All my family listened to them. Just everything about Alabama has just always been. I saw them in concert I think twice. All their farewell tours are never really farewell tours. Thank God for that. But just everything about Alabama is just, I could listen to everything they do.
Yeah, I love Alabama, man. My number 2 is George Strait. There's really nothing left to say that James hasn't already said. I will say this: the top 3 that I had, that I told you, you could kind of draw a hat on any given day, and I'd take it as a number 1. He is the only one of those 3 that I've never seen in concert, and I'd love to see that.
Yeah. Number 2 for me is Joe Nichols. I've said it before, if there was no such person as the guy I'm going to say at number 1, which y'all probably already figured out, Joe Nichols would be my favorite country artist. Joe Nichols is another one that's very below the radar. I've said it before, man, and I'm not a singer by any stretch, but if I could sound like anybody that I've ever heard sing a note, it will be Joe Nichols. That guy's just, his sound is like a modern day Merle Haggard. I'm not saying he's got as good at tracks as Merle Haggard, but his sound is very, very Merle Haggard. Especially this ultra traditional stuff he does, which most of the stuff he does is traditional. And I gained a lot of respect for him too over the years. When I know there was one award show, obviously Alan Jackson has taken a lot of stands against things that's going on in the award show, and rightfully so. He's been kind of a quiet assassin. I know there was one award show, they said, there's been several he protested, but there was one that just to not, because he's always, that's why I call him a quiet assassin. He's always kind of taking his stand, but not, in a way to insult anybody else, because somebody needs to take a stand on country music. And there was one award show where Alan Jackson and George Strait, if the story I'm hearing is right, Alan Jackson and George Strait sat in a separate room from everybody else at the award show, and Joe Nichols, when he got there, chose to sit with them. And that tells you a lot about him and his stance on country music as well. So I got Joe Nichols at number 2.
Yeah, and would you saying Alan is and we're going to start talking about Alan because that's my number 1, and I'm pretty sure it's yours too.
It is.
So we might as well just have an open conversation about it. Would you say a quiet assassin? In my mind, there's some times where it's good to be loud, and it works well. But when you got somebody that every time something goes wrong, they're always loud, you kind of stop taking them as serious.
Right.
Alan is taken serious every time because it's like you said, he has some the way that he goes about his protest, if that's what you want to call it, is very subtle, but it speaks high volumes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And my main reason why he comes in number 1 over George Strait and Hank Jr. Is because he he writes songs that are about his life, and then they go number one. Like, for example, he could write about getting off work and stopping at McDonald's, and next week it's number one. You know, the most streamed song, because he's that good with it. He can write about anything, and it's going there. And I just think that he is the greatest country music singer, in my opinion, period.
He's the GOAT to me, in my opinion. You know, there's a lot of people that have their own choices, and they're certainly respected too. But to me, he's the GOAT. But
man, I know him pretty well, but I think if you don't mind telling them, you know the story's pretty spot on. Can you tell those two stories of Alan Jackson doing a little protesting?
I can. I'll try to make these pretty quick, but they need to be told. This is the type of guy Alan Jackson is. You know, and the first story is pretty well known. I don't know how well known the second one is, but you can research him. You can even watch him on YouTube. But one very respectful thing about Alan Jackson is he absolutely reveres George Jones. Alan Jackson thinks the sun rises and sets on George Jones. And at the 1999 CMA Awards, George Jones had gotten off his drinking binge, and he'd gotten sober, and he got himself right. And he was on up in his 60s at that point, which is not old, but I'm just saying for getting songs on radio, the 60s is old. And George Jones had choices on the radio. And so the CMA was going, you know, it's been a long time since he's had anything. We're going to let you sing about 30 seconds of your song. Well, George Jones quietly opted out of that and said, you know what, I'm not going to sing part of my song. Either I'm going to sing it or I'm not, which he has every right to do. Well, Alan Jackson got wind of it and just was not happy. Let everybody know it, let the CMA know it, and decided to take a stand. So he told his band, he said and they were doing Papa Top that night, he told his band, if I go into the bridge of Papa Top and we change the direction the music is going, just go with me. And so halfway through Papa Top, Alan Jackson stopped the song and went into Choices. And you can watch the video on YouTube. He kind of gives a glare over to somebody, and I'm assuming he's looking at the CMA board or somebody. But anyway, he took a stand and did Choices, and then walked off the back of the stage and told the band, he's like, let's go. Didn't even stay for the rest of the show. He took that stand, and it needed to be done, but he got a standing ovation. I can remember watching the video, and I know Travis Tritt was standing up, and everybody was standing up. But those are just some of the names I recognize. But everybody loved it. Everybody was on board with it. And another thing he did was probably 4 or 5 years previous to that. I think this was actually at an ACM award show, and I don't know the year for this. But Alan Jackson wants his band to play live because that's what he should do. He knows he's the singer, he's the front man, but the band is his band. So they get up there, and I think it was Chattahoochee they were doing that night. Doesn't matter what song it was, but they told him, they said, everybody's doing backing tracks. He said, I'm not doing backing tracks. This is my band. They're going to play on the award show too. And they're like, no, you're going to do backing tracks. So he said, okay. So once again, clever, genius Alan Jackson taking a stand. He told his drummer, because he knew the camera would be right on Alan Jackson, and his drummer would be within the camera shot of what was going on. So he told his drummer, all right, if they're going to do this, play the drums, but don't even have drumsticks in your hands. So he's literally going like this in the background. So it looks silly. It just looks absolutely foolish. And Alan Jackson's doing the song, and the guy's playing without drumsticks, and it is a shot to the ACM Awards for asking them to do that. And he'll tell you, Alan Jackson did an interview years later after this happened. He said, they never asked me to do the tracks again. Once again, Alan Jackson won, the Nashville Machine 0. So Alan Jackson takes a good stand on things like that, and it's just another reason to love him.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said no better, man. So that's all I've got for today.
All right, me too.
All right.
We enjoyed it. See y'all next time.